Good morning. Hey, yeah. I love the rolling feel of that, right? The feel of the prosperity flow, because that's what we're talking about today, how to prosper. And this is our second part, and as the choir sang in the very first song, essentially you can't outgive the divine. Have you heard that before? Have you experienced that? Have you tried? So, John D. Rockefeller, you ever heard of that guy? Yeah. He really demonstrated this statement of truth that you cannot outgive God. So when he was 53, he was the richest man in the world. He had gotten rich through the work he had done with Standard Oil, founding Standard Oil. And he was also very sick and very miserable and given 1 year to live. And he was in despair, and he was sitting on a mountain, a fortune, right? And he started to just give it away everywhere. He founded hospitals, he founded schools, he founded charities, he gave to all these places, just kept giving, and something miraculous happened. He was healed. The doctors were astounded. And everybody was sort of scratching their head. What could have possibly happened here? And the only thing anybody could attribute it to it was the power of generosity. And so as he gave his money, his fortune, he was given the gift of life. 45 more years, he lived to be 98. And he is most known as a generous philanthropist. So that truth, that statement of truth that we cannot outgive the divine is not just a platitude, it's so many things we say, right? So many of the affirmations we speak, the blessings we say, sometimes they get a little bit rote because we say them over and over again, and we might be thinking about lunch or, what happened last week with our friend or whatever it is that happens in the human mind that distracts us, right? But when we come into the truth of some statement and we come in this deliberate way where we come together in this intentional way, including those online. Thank you very much for being with us, and those outside. And we come together because why? I mean, every one of us has a different reason for coming, right? Maybe we want spiritual community and we come more for social. Maybe we're here for the music. Maybe we're here for the message. Maybe we're here for the meditation. Maybe we're here because our friends are here, because we want to make friends. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons, right? And I could bank on the fact that all of us, at least part of that, is that we want to spiritually grow. We want to bring growth into our lives. We want to better our lives. We want to have experiences in our lives. We want to allow our lives to feel more full of grace, more full of ease, more full of love. And all those things can happen as we allow ourselves to really take in these kinds of statements of truth that are not just statements, but they're meant to be something to be lived into, experienced. So this idea, I can't outgive God, it's just sort of a, kind of a something to think about, right? But then, what if we practiced it? What if we said, well, let me give? I mean, someone like Rockefeller just gave, and what did he get back? Something so much more valuable, not to mention the millions of lives that were affected in positive ways because of his giving, but his own life force energy given back. And so that is the kind of thing that we don't always know. What am I going to receive back when I give? Sometimes we think it's just, it's going to be this for that because that's the outcome that I'm hoping for. But then all of a sudden we're completely surprised and delighted by what comes our way. Anybody experienced that before? Absolutely, all the time, right? And the more we are in this kind of flow, the more we come in with a community where that experience is multiplied because we're all kind of dwelling in a thought and then thinking about a practice and then actually stepping into the practice, which is really the idea. Really the idea of unity. It's the practicality of our spirituality. It's the living it. It's the walking the talk. So, I mean, I could stand here all day and, but what good is it really if we don't feel it in our bodies or in our hearts, or we don't feel some sense of inspiration or some sense of, oh yeah, that is something that I want to expand into, that I want to open into, that I want to move into. We know prosperity is more than money. Prosperity can be defined in any way you name a spiritual quality. In any way we can be aligned with the divine. There is love, there is connection, there is peace, there is a prosperity of relationship, there is a prosperity of creativity, there is a prosperity of just about anything you could possibly imagine or desire. And so keeping that in mind, that we're not just talking about money. We might be talking about freedom. We might be talking about joy. But it's really about you. What is up for you? What's present for you in this moment in your life? What is it that you are wanting to expand into? Maybe it is joy or love or freedom. You name it. You know it. You hold your intention. And then what comes can help you more because you know where you want to go. What lens are you opening up in your world? So if we think of prosperity as a river, you know, if a river is flowing and then it's not flowing, right? The river, if it just gathers up all of its water and it just pools its water and it doesn't continue to flow, what happens? It stagnates, right? And then sometimes if you've ever been by a stagnant river, you know, it breeds mosquitoes, it gets stinky, it grows all kinds of funky stuff, you know. So there is maybe a purpose to that stagnation for a moment, but if it does not continue to flow, then there is that stagnation of energy. Same with all of us in our lives, right? If we are not in the flow, then we start to feel stagnant. And then all the stuff that comes with that, stagnicity. Is that a word? Stagnicity. We just made it up. It is now. So it's really, you know, being aware of that and thinking of, maybe you could think of the river is prosperity, right? So the river of my prosperity. I have a river of prosperity. And the flow is the practice of giving. There are other aspects of prosperity that keep the flow going. Gratitude, closely related to generosity. Setting vision, which we talked about a couple weeks ago at the beginning of this series. Bigger picture living. Forgiveness, you know, all of these things can flow into it. But today we're talking about that process of giving, that practice of generosity that keeps the river flowing, that keeps the river of your prosperity flowing. So how's your river flowing? Is it flowing these days? You got a little stagnation? Do you have a desire for it to flow more or to open up or to widen your river, perhaps? Or maybe to experience some new tributaries of your river? There's lots of ways we can see this, and there's always some way we can grow, expand, or deepen, right? And so that's the invitation for you to consider in your life. Where am I right now? And how is my river? How is my river of prosperity? And what would I really like to experience? How would I like this to flow? How would I like this to go for me? You know, nature is such a good teacher of prosperity, and there's so many different examples we can look at in nature. One of them is the sun. Consider that the sun just keeps on beaming its light, right? The sun doesn't say, I'm only going to send my light to these people because I don't really like those people, right? It doesn't judge. It just shines. It just gives. And it gives without feeling diminished. It doesn't say, oh, I'm worried now, I'm going to run out of light. And so that's probably our biggest hiccup in prosperity, is that we get to that place and we think, I won't have enough. If I give, then I won't have enough. But giving is different than spending. Giving is different than expending. Giving is different than tiring ourselves out or whittling down our bank account or paying our expenses or however you want to see this, right? Tiring ourselves from over-serving or whatever that may be. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about how we get get in the flow and how we stay in the flow. And when we give from that conscious place of giving, from that place in which Spirit says, hey, over there, give, open up, and we do as we feel in sync with that, or we challenge ourselves and stretch ourselves and then see what happens. And usually what happens is things flow because it's the nature of life. It does not diminish us to shine our light in the same way that it does not diminish the sun to shine its light, because you are fueled by an infinite amount of light and love. It's remembering, like we did in the stillness a few moments ago, that I am, remembering who I am, who I've come here to be. And as we remember that, we sync up with that, we flow with that, then it's like, wow, there is just, I wonder if the sun ever says that. Wow, there is a lot of light here to give. I could never exhaust my supply of light. And so it is for us. Because it's not coming from human limitation. It's not coming from physicality. It's coming through physicality. And it's that infinite experience of prosperity. That's what we're touching here when we move into prosperity, when we allow ourselves to move with prosperity. So how we give, the consciousness with which we give is key, right? As it is with everything. And so when we go back to, consciousness of giving, we can think about where is my head and my heart when I'm giving? In this moment, am I feeling like there's not enough? Or I'm listening to this little voice that's saying, I'm not enough, or there won't be enough. And those fears that come up are very natural fears that come up. And if we give from that place, sometimes we end up with less or stagnation at the very least. Now, of course, fears are part of the process, right? And so if we come in with the intention knowing, okay, hello, fear. Fear is here, fear is a part of it, and fear is a part of the practice. And so we go into it with the intent of knowing that as I meet my fear and I push a little further through my fear, that I actually expand my consciousness and open up the river of flow. And so fear can be a really helpful harbinger of a doorway that we can open. And allow ourselves then to see what happens when I push on that door just a little bit. Still having compassion for myself and my fear and the reasons why I'm holding all the good reasons why we have those, right? We could all fill in books of good reasons why I can't give. And yet, if we just say, let me just open the door a little bit and see if I could give in this way. And often it's something spontaneous that comes our way, right? Or it might be something deliberate, a new practice that you're putting into place to be on a regular basis. Now, on the flip side, if we give with a consciousness that is a consciousness of gratitude, a consciousness of already maybe a consciousness of abundance, a consciousness of a sense of purpose to our giving, then there's flow naturally. And so just allowing ourselves to dance with awareness. There's many different ways we can give in a blessing, give people silent blessings with a real groundedness in our heart. Or we could come together on Sunday morning and, be thinking about something else and say a blessing that, we say every week. So I got that. And we all go in and out of that kind of consciousness, right? Well, do we? I do. Maybe you don't. But there are times when I feel really present to what it is we are saying, and I feel the power behind it, and I hear us all saying it together and meaning it and feeling that sense of pow, This is that space where we open up collectively, which can be so profound. And you might be thinking right now, in terms of prosperity, I would like Unity to have a cooler room on Sunday morning. Are you thinking that? Guess what? Because of your giving, we are going to get new air conditioning next week. Next Sunday, you'll just be flowing in here going, ooh, this is nice and comfy. So there are so many ways that we give to life and that we receive back from life. Generosity is a spiritual practice for this very reason, because it continues to expand us, expand our minds, expand us in our possibility thinking. So, there's always receiving, right? We can't just talk about giving. It would almost be like, just talking about the river stagnating or the river flowing. It's like both things happen, right? And also in the flow of prosperity, both sides of that flow is giving and receiving. So we also want to be good receivers, because then our good flows through us and to us and continues on out, and we continue to bless one another in such a way. And so there was a wonderful experience of this. Last weekend, we had a gender healing workshop. And during that workshop, Lariah was gifted something very special. And so she agreed to come up and share her story. Or do you want it like that?
Yeah, that's fine.
However it works for you.
Hi. Yes, first of all, it's almost like a trifecta gift that I have received that weekend. It started when I was given the gift of actually being able to attend the workshop. It was just phenomenal in itself. It was just so wonderful to be able to have that experience. And during that first few days, the facilitators, there were 4 of them. And that one particular day, they all wore these necklaces, and they were very beautiful. And so they talked a little bit about them, but I wasn't quite sure exactly what it meant and what it meant for them. So I asked them to expand on it to see, what it really meant to them and how they used them. And so they did that and told me, well, how can I get something like that? And it's like a store, or do you make them, or can I make them? And so I thought maybe I might make one. But when I was looking at them, one of them just kind of drew me. Like there was an energy that it was just so beautiful, and there was a connection. And I kind of wanted one similar to that. I wanted to make one similar to the colors and just the way it felt and the way it just radiated to me. So then after the event was over, we were just kind of relaxing, just kind of trying to get a hold of ourselves and just relax. So one of the facilitators came and found me, and then it kind of went like this.
I remember this, so I didn't see the giving, but I remember seeing how he was wearing it that day.
Yes, and they looked like bracelets. And I thought, I'm going to get a nice bracelet. Wonderful.
And then there was this slow unwinding.
And then I realized what it was. It was the exact bracelet or necklace that I was drawn to. And then he said, I have to give this to you. And so you can imagine, just like, after going through a weekend like that, and then to have this topped off with such a wonderful gift, such meaningful, and it was just words can't express. It's really what it really meant to me, and to be able to receive it and not just so I can't receive something like that. No, it was just so wonderful to just receive that and to get just a wonderful hug from him and to say how much he appreciated me being there for the weekend. So thank you.
Thank you, Lariah. Such a beautiful story, and it has so many of these components in it of receiving and giving and being in that flow where giving can stretch us and receiving can be such a deep blessing for us, and vice versa, right? Giving can be such a deep blessing, and receiving sometimes can be such a stretch for us. And so I remember, when especially when Lariah told me the story about her saying, inside at least, like, no, but not like, no, I won't receive it. Just, this is such a big gift. It is such a precious gift. I'm so, opened by this. And to think about the giver then, that he was in this space where, and this happens when we feel attuned with spirit, is that we are sometimes guided to give things that, we kind of don't want to give on one level. But yet there is this impulse, this knowing that I must give this. That this is a part of us coming into alignment with what it means to be spirit, because spirit gives by nature. That's what spirit does. Spirit flows, spirit gives, spirit continuously pours out love and light and good and everything we could possibly ever need. It's an endless channel, an endless spring. And in the moments that we come in sync with that, we become that. And that feels to me like very much what the facilitator did there and what Lariah did by being an open, receiving, willing recipient of this deep gift. So there are many different tributaries that can happen from our river of prosperity, many different ways in which we can give our legacy. And have you considered that, what your legacy might be? Sometimes we give in a planned way our legacy, and sometimes it's just the ripple effect of the goodness in which we give in the world. For Osceola McCarty, it was both planned giving, but also a sense of that ripple effect, that positive ripple effect. Osceola was born in 1908 in Mississippi, and her aunt became ill when she was in 6th grade, so she left school to take care of her aunt. She worked as a washerwoman all of her life, so she made very little money, as you could imagine, and she always saved a little bit. So over time, she was saving. She lived very, very frugally. And she shocked the whole world, actually, when she gave, at the age of 87, $150,000 to the University of Southern Mississippi, saying, I want to help African American students, somebody's child, go to college. She was given so many gifts and awards, the President's Citizens Medal, an award for educational awareness through the United Nations, an honorary degree through the University of Southern Mississippi, and there's this bronze statue of her on their campus. People were so inspired by this giving that it just caught like wildfire. And people started giving millions of dollars and saying they were emulating Osceola. That's profound, isn't it? It's like the story of the widow's mite from the Bible that, she just gave a little bit, but she gave what she had to give. And $150,000 might be a lot of money to any of us, but to her, imagine how much money that was. And so it's that thinking about and allowing ourselves to be in that place of legacy. What will be the tributaries from my river of prosperity? What will I leave behind? Maybe it's a legacy of kindness. Maybe it's a direct gift like Osceola left behind for many students to come and all the people that were blessed by the giving yet to come. And all the people that learn about her, the students that continue to go there, even if they weren't directly a recipient of those scholarships. So the value of what we give has nothing to do with the amount. The value of what we give is larger depending upon how large the spirit in which it is given. And so that's the key, right? It's all about the spirit in which something is given. Giving keeps us connected and in circulation, right? Keeps us in that law of circulation. And some of you might know about the 4 T's. Do you remember the 4 T's? Stretton Smith's teaching. A few of you have your hands up. The 4 T's are time, talent, treasure, and tithes. And the class was all about giving on all those levels. I took the very first Unity class I took was on prosperity. It wasn't 4Ts, but it kind of followed the idea of the 4Ts. And one of the things we needed to commit to during the duration of the class was to tithe on a weekly basis. I liked the structure of it and what was presented, that we give 10% of our income, once we receive our income, to the places we're spiritually nourished or inspired, or the people, and then we pay our expenses. And so every week I would sit there with my checkbook and I'd just like go within and think about, where have I been blessed? And then I felt like Rockefeller when I would write those checks. It made me feel wealthy and generous. I mean, just talking about it makes me realize now that I do auto giving, I need to stop more often, right? And be in this process, because the process of being considerate about where things are going and really allowing yourself to feel into that is really profound. It's really a big piece of the practice. So I really enjoyed the process and the practice, and just it made sense to me, and I just never looked back. Just through thick and thin, I've been a tither. And there have been times when I moved from Chicago with pretty decent paying job to go work at Silent Unity as a prayer associate. And, when I looked at my bank account and my paycheck, it was like, whoa, how am I going to make this work? Anybody ever been there? Yeah. But not tithing wasn't an option in my mind. It just wasn't even a consideration. So that practice kept up. And I remember one day just being absolutely awash with a feeling of prosperity. I mean, I felt really grateful, and I started crying. I felt so prosperous. And I started crying because I was so amazed at how I could make so little money and feel so prosperous. I'd never felt that prosperous before. And so it was like, how does this, and it could only be, it could only be the practice of giving and generosity and the power of generosity that was blessing me in such a way that I could have that deep feeling experience that I've never forgotten. Have you had that kind of experience before? Some of you are nodding your heads. Yeah. So it's one of those things that, we can talk all day about stuff, but until we experience it ourselves, it's hard to describe, really. But if you can relate to times when you have felt that, and you could trace it back in whatever ways you might to whatever practices were happening for you or whatever conditions were happening for you. But for me, I'm pretty sure it was the keeping up of that practice that really allowed me to have that opening and have that experience of faith and trust, and to allow me to really realize that I'm all the more committed to continuing the practice. So, when we talk about this topic, tithing, actually means a tenth or 10%, but that's not a place to get hung up. Where for each of us it's important is to ask, where do I feel comfortable? Like, what percentage do I feel comfortable giving of my income and my time and my talent and so on, all the ways that we can give the 4Ts. And then can I stretch myself a little bit beyond that? So if it's 5%, maybe I can stretch myself to 6% and start there and just see what happens for you. Practice is what it's all about. So, on every piece of U.S. currency, whether it's a coin or a bill, and I know a lot of us aren't using a lot of cash anymore, but the next time you come across some cash, take a look at it. Yeah, bring it here, as our former treasurer. Read it. In God we trust. Every piece of money that we print. In God we trust. And so that idea is embedded in our money. And this idea of giving is embedded in the idea of trusting in the divine. And so that is the key, is to build our trust, to have a sense of pushing ourselves a little bit through the fear and establishing that sense of trust and faith within ourselves, to anchor ourselves in that truth statement of, I cannot outgive the divine. And so let me flow with it and see what happens. How exciting it would be to be like Rockefeller in terms of that kind of philanthropy, isn't it? Like that just really lights me up, that idea of being in that kind of constant, generous giving. And we all can do it because remember, the value isn't in the amount, it's in the spirit in which we flow, the spirit in which we give. And those blessings just come back multiplied again and again and again. So there's a small business owner who was telling me that when he gives his tithe on weeks where, business is okay, it's fine. But when business is booming and he goes to write out like $1,000 check, he's like, it's a little bit more of a leap of faith. And it's part of that trust, right? It's part of that trust that we keep building, that muscle that we keep building. Because who knows where the money's going to come from the next week? God does. Spirit does. And soon we will too. So where and how is your river flowing these days? What do you feed and how do you feed that flow? Does the flow go toward the people and places that nourish you, that inspire you? Or are you giving to some places that you actually would rather not sustain? It's worthy of our inventory. Take a 4 T's inventory and take a look at really, am I invested in the things I value? And that's really the key question. What do I value and am I investing? Am I flowing in the things I value? Am I saying to the universe, I want more of that and less of that? I want more of that, less of that. That's how we discern where our good flows and what good we have to give. Spirit will always tell us. So the practice of giving, generous giving, is how we will begin to see for ourselves what good comes, what blessings come. So let's just have a prayer to close out before our affirmation, just to really anchor some of these ideas in a different way. And if you want to close your eyes or maybe just have a soft gaze. And just knowing these truths, that the infinite river of life and love and prosperity flows through my being and flows through my life, flows through every one of us. Blessing us, blessing our community with everything we could possibly need and more, blessing us with prosperity in all of its glorious forms. Prosperity grows us. It allows us to expand and to deepen and to be more fully engaged in the river of life itself. And so we say yes to that. We say yes to being channels of prosperity, to being rivers of blessing out there in the world. We say yes to receiving our multiplied good. Let this be your affirmative prayer, that I release any fear of not enough, and that I grab hold of the knowing, the truth, that I cannot outgive God, giving freely and joyfully, knowing that truth in my bones. Your life is a tributary of consciousness, of kindness. Your actions are a legacy of love. Your generous giving is a beautiful reflection of the divine itself. And so let us flow, let us allow, let us open ourselves to both the receiving and the giving. And thank you, Spirit, for the many, many uncounted blessings that we hold and experience and that moves through our lives in the many blessings we are well aware of that we count every day. May they continue to be multiplied so that we may continue to be a healthy river of prosperity in our bodies, in our lives, in our relationships, in our community, and that the tributaries are too many to name. And their flow continues and continues and continues to bless countless people, places, nature, the earth. And on it goes. And so it is. Let's say our affirmation together. I give freely and joyfully, and I receive a multitude of blessings. And so it is.